Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
You ready?
Showtime.
On May 3rd, summer starts with The Fall Guy.
Let's do it later.
Let's drink a spicy margarita.
Make some bad decisions.
Yes!
Audiences are falling in love with the most entertaining film of the year.
Fall Guy.
Fall Guy?
Fall guy.
That's what the poster said.
See Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt in the movie critics say exists to make you happy.
Trying to make it out?
Nope.
Because I don't either. It's not what I'm into right now.
What are you into?
Talking.
Yeah.
The Fall Guy. Only in theaters May 3rd. Rated PG-13.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome to Women's Hoops and Talks, the What podcast, where we are elevating the voice of women in basketball. I'm Tara, joined as always by Kendyl. Kendyl, how's it going today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I am excited to share the interview that we just did with Anna Horford. What a treat to get to talk to somebody who is related to someone who's actually playing in the NBA playoffs right now.
Yeah, it's nice to get that different perspective. We're usually talking to like media people, so it's interesting to get a very different side of everything.
Yeah. Well, let's have a really quick discussion amongst us about what we think is going to happen in those playoffs, and then we'll run the interview. So let's start off with the Eastern Conference in honor of our guest, Anna Horford, the Celtics center's sister. We'll start with the East. What did you think of the fact that the Celtics just blew the doors off the Cavs in Game 1 of the series?
Yeah, so I mean, I personally, so I'll say my prediction for this is I obviously I think the Cavs are going to win this series because like I say all the time, I don't bet against LeBron. I think most people are looking at it, and if you're looking at it from kind of a narrow perspective, it's they blew them away. There's no chance that Cavs are gonna come back and win if they obviously lost that badly, which, you know, that could happen. But if you've been watching the playoffs this year, that's kind of been happening to LeBron. It's the Game 1 against the Pacers, they got blown out. Game 1 against Toronto, they won, but they were losing by a lot. It wasn't until the very end, or kind of towards the end of the game, that they ended up coming back. So I think, not to say that this is a sign of, it's going to happen again. There's for sure Cavs are going to win, but I don't think that one game is really going to matter, especially if you look at the way LeBron played in that game. Everyone keeps saying, he took the game off, and he kind of did. So as long as they're playing like that, and when the Cavs aren't making their shots and they're missing everything, and if they continue to play like that, then yeah, they're not going to win the series. But that, I really don't see that happening, that they're going to continue to play that way. So I'm not worried after that game at all. But I think if we get to Game 3 and they still haven't won a game, then I'll get worried. But until then, I'm not worried.
Yeah, I'm super conflicted on this, but I put on my conspiracy hat and started thinking about it today, because I started thinking about the LeBron press conference, because obviously it was LeBron had a bad game, right? He had, what did he have, 15 points? Shoot, I didn't look it up.
Yeah,
but
it was something like that.
He had a very poor scoring game. He was definitely not himself. And then when that reporter asked him the question, what happened, and he proceeded to exactly repeat, like, for 2 minutes, all of the plays that happened on the court, kind of showing off his memory. But also, I was wondering if he was, like, trolling people, going, do you think that I didn't take this game off on purpose? You know what I mean? Like, for somebody who, like, I was just like, did he just throw that game? I mean, not literally throw that game, but was he just like, you know what? I'm going to sit back and I'm going to lull them into a false sense of complacency. I'm going to make them think that they have everything figured out. And then I'm going to strike. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to watch all the plays that they're going to throw at me. And I'm going to miss so that they keep throwing everything at me. And then the next game, I'm going to apply all that and just, like, tear their throats out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people underestimate. I mean, everyone knows that LeBron obviously has a ridiculously high basketball IQ. But I think even while saying that, so many people underestimate just how high it actually is. And how much of the game, obviously, yes, he's ridiculously athletic. He's an incredible player, but people really, like, they don't understand how much of it is mental too, and how much, like, he outsmarts every single person on the court at all times. And I think if he did take it off on purpose, which I also think he did, it does kind of work in his favor, because now he can see, okay, here's what their game plan is coming into this. Now they're feeling good about it. They're gonna maybe relax a little more, or what he kind of gives them this false sense or this false confidence. And that's definitely a strategy. And I think that he also is kind of tired coming off of 2 series. So I think he is kind of like, okay, let me relax for a game. Let me take it off. Let me just watch this game and figure out what they're doing, see what their game plan is, and then I'll come in and take care of it.
Well, I certainly hope that the rest of the games are closer anyway, because I didn't watch much of that because I was like, it was Mother's Day. I was in and out, and I was just like, okay, yeah, this is not worth me watching right now. So I hope that the rest of the games are a bit closer. But moving over to the West, this is the matchup that I've been waiting for all year. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said this on here before. I typically don't watch Golden State games, but I definitely am interested in this because I don't really know who's gonna win. This is one that I really don't have a prediction. I know who I want to win. I want to see Houston win, but I really cannot confidently make a prediction and support it at all. I feel like this is probably the one that most the playoff series, or the series that I have struggled with the most this year of actually picking a winner. And
so you're thinking Golden State.
I see. I'm not thinking Golden State's gonna win. I don't want them to win, but I'm also not necessarily leaning towards them. I think I kind of go back and forth, because part of me goes, oh, well, if you look at the regular season, Houston did have a better, against just their series against each other, Houston did win more of those games. You can look at stuff like that, but then you also look at, well, the starting lineup for Golden State just got released. They're playing the Hampton 5. And so you look at stuff like that and you go, okay, so they're going full force in game 1, and Golden State full force is hard to bet against. So I'm back and forth. I think I need to watch 2 games first, and then I will have a good idea of where I stand. But as of right now, I think it could go either way.
I just don't know if Houston is equipped, because I think the coaching style of the, I think one of the strengths of D'Antoni and Houston is that they've got just the right players who play together really well, and they all are in the position to be their best and to do their best. But I don't think that they run a lot of plays. I think they have a pretty simple playbook, and they run over and over and over again the things that they do best. which has worked really well. But I think that the team from the Bay Area has more tricks in their bag. And I think that they're tired of, like, you know, they went from being the darlings of the league to, like, a lot of people all of a sudden don't like them anymore. I mean, I don't even know when that moment happened, but it was like everybody loved them and now everyone's sick of them. Like, it happened so fast. And I don't think they like being in that position. And I think they got a little bit of an edge to themselves now. Like, think of all those, you know, fouls, all those flagrant fouls, or all those ejections that they were getting this year and how cranky they were. And I think that they're not having as much fun, and so where they used to play with joy, now they're playing with a chip on their shoulder. And I think the last thing anybody wants to come up against is that team with a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to bet against them, but I think in some ways Houston also feels like they have more to prove, and they're like, I feel like they're like a little more motivated, because that's one thing about Golden State is that even though, yeah, I think obviously they've stopped doing we can kind of relax and we can have more fun with it, and like the whole thing they did all season that drove everyone crazy. They're not going to do that in this series. But the fact that they have been doing it for such a big part of the season, I think, like, Houston has never been in that mindset, and I think that they're still going on that same train that they've been doing all season. And I think that is almost an advantage in itself, because they're just going to keep going through the motions of what they've been doing. Now Golden State kind of has to restart that, and that potentially is going to hurt them. So I'm interested to see, because obviously they're not going to take any breaks in this, but I'm interested to see if that kind of hurts them and you kind of see them getting a little lazy at times or different things kind of unintentionally.
Yeah, maybe Houston can lull them into a false sense of complacency and go out and get blown away in game one and then go back and try a little LeBron trick on them. Maybe they could do that, a little reverse psychology.
Yeah, possibly. But I think in theory that's good. And I think in LeBron's situation that obviously, like, he can kind of do whatever he wants and he pulls it off. I think with Houston, I think this game one is a must win for them. I think if they don't win this first game, they're going to have a really hard time winning this series. But if they win game one, they're solidifying that they are, like, they're not going to back down and they are going to power through this. So I think this is probably more than any other game than they've had this season. This is a must win.
Yeah. Well,
they can lose game two or whatever, but game one, I think this is the most important game for them right now.
Well, again, I just hope it's a good series. I think it could go either way. I think it could, we could get some really good basketball over the next several weeks where both the conference finals and the championships are great. But I think there's also a possibility that if Golden State has really been sleeping this whole season, that it could be real boring for the next month. They could just walk right over everybody, and it might be like, I mean, I worry that if that happens, that the ratings will go down, because I don't want to watch that, No,
and I think that's a big thing is a lot of people don't, at least just hearing from people that I at least know, basketball fans, and people don't want to see a Warriors-Cavs finals again. And I know that some ratings might suggest it. Like, ratings in some ways will suggest otherwise based off of last year's finals had higher ratings. But at the same time, if you look at, like, the true basketball fans, they're done with it. They're over it. And I think
I do want to see Cavs and Warriors, but I want them both full strength battling it out. I absolutely would, because I don't want to see the finals without LeBron,
Yeah.
So, like, I want to see that, but I want it to be an even match. And if Golden State has been hiding this extra gear this whole time, and now it's Hampton's 5 from here on out, and they rip everybody apart, then I might watch game one, and then after that I'm like WNBA is starting up. There's the hockey playoffs will still be going on. I might even watch baseball because I just don't want to watch Golden State play keep away for, a second year in a row. Well, I think that we should not hold off playing our interview any longer. Let's go ahead and transition into introducing Anna. So Anna Horford joined us, and she is the host of Horford Happy Hour, which is a podcast on the CLNS Media Network. She is the sister of NBA star Al Horford. It was really fun to talk to her, and I hope you all enjoy our conversation with Anna Horford. So much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited.
Well, we imagine that you're super busy right now with a little something called the NBA playoffs going on, and a close family member of yours playing in them. So we know everyone's time is valuable, but we really wanted to hear some of your thoughts on what's going on in the NBA right now, and a little bit more about background about your family. I'm wondering if you could start off by telling listeners about the Horford Happy Hour, your podcast.
Yeah, so Horford Happy Hour is just a weekly podcast with varying topics. I've covered everything from basketball to fitness to sex and current events, and it's been pretty fun. Each week we feature a different wine or champagne, and we pair it with the episode. And it started in January, and I kind of got the idea after I was a guest on a few different podcasts, and, people kind of encouraged me to start my own, and CLNS Media Network approached me and asked if it was something that I was interested in, and I totally was, and now here we are.
Do you have a favorite episode that you've done so far, or one that you'd recommend that folks who maybe haven't listened should start with?
Well, I think a lot of people like the Ask Al episode, and that was just, I had asked my followers on Twitter if they had any questions for Al, basketball related or not, and so that was pretty fun, just because people got to kind of interact with both him and I, and so I think that was a good one. I think that's one that people really like, and I highly encourage you to listen to all of them, though.
Well, kind of on that note, I mean, we definitely have a couple of questions for you about your brother, obviously, especially considering he is currently playing in the playoffs. But when kind of growing up with him, when did you first kind of start knowing that he was this amazing player and that he had a chance of making it into the NBA?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, I'm a fan of all of our siblings. I'm everyone's number one fan. I think we have a really great support system in our family, and we all kind of have our own thing going on. But regarding Al and his success, I think that it became really evident during his Gator days. I think his time with Florida really solidified it for me and for a lot of other people that he was going to be special, and that he was going to make a big impact in the NBA. So yeah, I definitely think college basketball, the 2 national championships, and it's been history ever since.
So how do you kind of handle it when people criticize him? Because obviously that's such a huge part of sports, is people getting criticized, and seeing that that's then your brother being criticized. How do you kind of handle that side of it?
It's really hard sometimes. I mean, I've gotten a lot better than where I was a couple of years ago. And this sounds weird, but I'm numb to a lot of the hate and the negativity that kind of comes our way. And, I know his talent and his strengths, and no troll on the internet's ever going to change that. So, but it does get old, especially when people, try to tell me how I should handle it, especially when they're not in my situation. A lot of people say I should ignore, the trolls and people online. But sometimes, when certain lines are crossed, it becomes very, very hard to ignore certain things.
You mentioned your other siblings, and I noted that your father as well was also a basketball player. You have a really, really sporty family. One of the things is I've always really been curious about is what is it like when how do you manage life when you have all these really sporty people who are playing at a really high level all the time? I mean, I have 3 kids and none of them are particularly, talented athletically, but we still had a really busy life. But you have brothers who played, your father was a player. I believe, did you play as well? And how did you as a family just manage all of the logistics of so many people playing at a high level?
Yeah, well, for personally, for me, I had blown out my knee when I was really young, so it wasn't, the basketball spotlight was never really on me, but it was hectic growing up. We had our brothers obviously play high school. They played AAU, and then my 2 oldest brothers both went D1. Al went to the Gators. My brother John went to Michigan, and our younger brother was playing in junior college, and so it was always interesting trying to balance everything. One brother would be on TV, and we'd be at the other brother's game watching, watching Al on my phone while we were watching John live at Michigan and whatnot. And John was actually in the G League this season. He's been in the G League for I believe a couple seasons now, and so even just going to his games, watching Al's games on our phone, we kind of have to take turns. We try to keep track of, each brother and try to balance it all out. And, even though they're at different levels, we try to give equal attention to all of them. So yeah.
I can't imagine how busy your parents must have been, shuffling everybody around and making sure that somebody was at everybody's game. And
no, I mean it's definitely helped now with technology. Now that you can pretty easily pull up a game on your phone and whatnot. But we were
just
always
have a really big data plan.
Yeah, exactly. We're always trying to keep track of someone else's game while we're at a game, kind of thing. So yeah. It's an interesting dynamic for sure.
And one of the things that I've really been curious about is, we read a lot about, so-and-so had to work really hard and he put in the work and he did all those years. As a family member of somebody who's doing all that work, what is that work that they're doing? Are there late night extra practices? Are there extra sessions? Are there just playing in the driveway? What are some of the extra things that players who achieve this extra level that you've witnessed them doing? Yeah, well, so John and Al had a really great trainer. His name is Larry, and he was constantly in the gym with them, and they were going beyond normal practice hours. So even at the high school level, putting up 1,000 shots a day, doing everything that it takes to get to the next level. A lot of kids, especially I think nowadays, want to reach the next level, but they don't necessarily want to put in the work. And I think John and Al, both had excellent work ethic, and something that they kind of learned a little bit later, I would say college, was that nutrition was also extremely vital. John and Al are 2 of the healthiest eaters that I know in the entire world. They're non-GMO, they're organic. They try to eat really clean, especially during the season. And so I think that's really important, just little things like that. And then, yeah, like you said, extra practice, extra, time in the gym, all the little things that it takes to be an elite player. Do you remember them playing with anybody who, when they were kids, who later went on, to be a NBA player or a college star? Well, they both played for the Michigan Mustangs, which is a pretty prominent AAU team. So, when John and Al played with them, they obviously went on to Florida and Michigan, but their teammates had gone on to places like Michigan State, and whatnot. And so, yeah, a few of the guys that they played with,
throughout their careers have reached, the professional level or have gone overseas and whatnot. So it's really cool to see everyone's, different journeys and how guys have developed throughout the years.
So since we are right in the middle of the playoffs, have you been kind of keeping up with the playoffs as a whole? Have you mostly just been watching Boston, or kind of how have you been watching the playoffs this year?
I've mostly been focused on Boston and the East. I've kind of, you kind of give a side eye out to the West. But right now, with everything going on, basketball is not my life. So I don't like to eat, sleep, and breathe it all the time. So I'm definitely just paying more attention to the East and where the Celtics are at and whatnot. I am, obviously, you have the West in the back of your mind because the talent, in the Western Conference is just absolutely insane. It makes you a little bit nervous. But for the most part, yeah, just kind of focused on the East.
Do you kind of have a preference of, if Boston does make it to the finals, of who their opponent is? Do you have a preference of who you want them to be playing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, Golden State and Houston, they both make me so nervous. Yeah. But, Boston's played well against Golden State at Golden State. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, both teams they've got different strengths and I think we're such a young team and people have kind of been underestimating us all season, all playoffs. And so I think either team would be, extremely challenging. But so yeah, I don't really have a preference. I think either could give us, a good run for our money.
Mm-hmm. And that would be an interesting series. I know that at least I've seen online that you're not the biggest Draymond Green fan. So I'm sure that would add a little bit to it.
Yeah, definitely. He played for State. My brother played for Michigan, and I've never been a huge fan of his personality. He's not the worst player in the world. I like to poke fun at him sometimes because he's one of those really nitty gritty guys, and so yeah.
Are you allowed to have like favorite players, or is that something that like you can't, pick favorites? Obviously, besides your brothers, because of course they're number one.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I enjoy watching certain people. I love watching Steph Curry play. James Harden has been extremely impressive, and so yeah. I mean, you do have guys that you enjoy. If you enjoy basketball, you're gonna enjoy watching these guys play. So yeah, but of course, family comes first, and the Celtics come first, and whatnot. So yeah.
What are some of the memorable stories some of the stories you like to tell about some of the people that you've met in the NBA outside of your family?
Yeah, well, I know this is probably going to sound strange, but meeting players and coaches is like nothing that's really new for me and my siblings. Just because we've kind of been around professional basketball since we were born. So it's pretty normal. So we don't really get like starstruck or anything. But I talk about how we met Kobe in his final season, and he was very sweet, and he was actually very humble, and we got to talk to him for a bit. And I had just told a story on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, my sister and I, when we were in Milwaukee for the playoffs. Danny Ainge comes walking into the team hotel. We're waiting for Al in the lobby, and he just kind of puts his arms around us, and we get in this huddle, and he's kind of like, all right, guys, game plan. What are we gonna do? Like, and it's just funny because people see Danny Ainge. I know a lot of people, he can probably be intimidating to some people, but he's just, he's kind of a goofy dude, really nice, and So yeah, and all the guys on Al's team have been great. The guys, when he played in the Hawks, they were all really humble, and it's always interesting seeing players kind of outside of their element, or I guess what people would be used to seeing them in, like at the arena and at games, and we see guys at Al's birthday party, and you see another side of them. You see like a fun side, and get to know like their personalities and whatnot. So that's always fun. And I always I've talked about before how when Al was with the Hawks and Chris Humphries was on the team, we were waiting for Al in Detroit to come out after the game, and Chris Humphries came out, and he was, kind of talking to my dad a bit, and then I was talking to him a bit, and then he kind of like points at my dad. He's like, "Hey, you should turn around." Turn around. My dad's like giving us like the hawk eyes, like just like watching us talk, because he thinks like, we're flirting or something. And so yeah, it's always interesting, but like I said, it's a pretty normal thing for us.
So now that the regular season is over, obviously the talk for NBA awards has definitely amped up a whole lot. So do you have any big opinions on the MVP race, Coach of the Year, kind of those big awards? Do you have any predictions for those?
A little bit. I've thought about it a bit. For MVP, I mean, I see Harden winning, honestly. The Rockets have 65 wins, and he's averaging like 30 points a game, 8 assists. And the only other person I could think of is you could make a case for LeBron, just because he's kind of carrying his team at this point. As far as like Coach of the Year, obviously, I know I sound biased, but I got to go with Brad Stevens. Just because he's done so much, and he's overcome so much adversity, and no one's really doing what he's doing right now. So I think he's been extremely impressive. And Rookie of the Year, I had probably Donovan Mitchell. I know that you could make a case for Tatum or Simmons, but Mitchell he was outstanding in the playoffs and whatnot. So yeah, that's who I've got. And then most improved, I would probably say Jaylen Brown, just because if you look at him last season compared to this season, I mean, he's just come leaps and bounds. It's awesome, and he's really helped our team get to where we're at. So he's been extremely impressive.
Have you ever attended any of those big events like the NBA awards or like the draft party or any of or the All-Star game or any of those big events with your family?
My family is always, like, my dad has always gone to those, and my siblings have gone. I am like a super busy bee. So, I remember one year, like at Al's draft, I was actually like in Vegas for like dance nationals, and like, things haven't really lined up, in order for me to kind of flip my schedule around and head to those things. I would love to go to the NBA awards, maybe sometime in the next couple seasons. And, obviously, the All-Star game is a really fun event as well. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
So one of the things we like to ask everybody who comes on the podcast is, who is a woman that you admire in the basketball world?
I would have to say, I mean, this might be obvious, but Becky Hammon. And, I think that she's just really paved the way for other women. And even though she, especially recently, has been kind of constantly criticized and doubted, she's breaking into a male-dominated field, and she's doing it with class and with skill. And she's definitely earned respect from her players and from fellow coaches. And I think that speaks volumes. And I know that a few players had come out and said, the only people who talk down to women in the WNBA or women in sports are fans and not other players. Because, I mean, when it comes down to it, professional basketball player is a professional basketball player. And these guys really do, for the most part, respect, the WNBA and women in basketball. And I think a lot of guys are pushing for, more women in sports and in these male dominated fields. And another person I would say, not a player or coach, but definitely I look up to Doris Burke. She's phenomenal, and she has, excellent basketball knowledge, and she doesn't budge. She demands respect, and she's really great at her job. So I think those two, I would have to say, are really inspiring.
Yeah, two just amazing women. Can either of you imagine or remember ever recalling so much discussion about any other assistant coaches, whether or not they should get an interview? That's the thing that is driving me crazy about this whole Becky Hammon thing, is like suddenly everybody has opinions on whether this one particular assistant coach deserves to have an interview. And I don't recall ever having that discussion about anyone else. Do either of you?
No. And and that is like, it's not even just sports when it kind of comes to controversial opinions like that. It's women trying to, pave the way in all aspects of life and in different fields. And it's really disheartening. It's kind of like, shouldn't we be over it by now?
Yeah. Are we still having this discussion?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Anna, thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. Could you tell folks how they can find your work, how they can find the podcast, and if they want to follow you on Twitter?
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys can find me on Twitter at Anna Horford. And there's always a link to my podcast on my Twitter page. And if you just want to look it up or Google it, it's just Horford Happy Hour. And definitely tune in for sure.
Oh, I was going to ask you, of all of the wine, because I know you drink a different bottle of wine for every episode. Do you have one that has emerged as the favorite?
That is really hard, just because I love wine. But I really like, if you're looking for something really affordable and just kind of gets the job done and solid, I love the whole Apothic series. So Apothic Red, Apothic White, Apothic Inferno. Those are kind of my go-tos. The one I featured this week is called Cocoa Bomb, and it's a red blend, and it is delicious. It's one of my new favorites, so you guys should go out and try it. It's really good.
Now, we're from Oregon, so do you recall if you've sampled any Oregon wines?
I don't know. Obviously a lot from California, but do you have one that you recommend?
I don't really, because I'm not a big wine drinker, but I know Oregon Pinot is what's really, really well known. So I'll just put in a plug for Oregon Pinot. Give that a try sometime.
Sounds good. Will do.
Well, again, thank you so much for your time, Anna. I really appreciate it. And I hope everybody gets a chance to go check out the Horford Happy Hour, because it's really fun to listen to. Thanks a lot.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Women's Hoops and Talks podcast, the What Podcast. We are hosted by Blazers Edge, part of the Almighty Baller Radio Network. If you like what you heard, please go find the Blazers Edge podcast on iTunes or Stitcher and subscribe, rate, and review. We release new episodes of the What Podcast every other Thursday. If you want to get notified when the What Podcast episodes are released, you can follow us on Twitter at Hoops and Talks. I'm on Twitter at Kendyl Bennett 16, and Tara is TCB Bids or Team Mom Rip City.